All right, cool. We're live.
All
Thanks
right.
for doing this, Mike.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is great.
I appreciate it. I've really enjoyed kind of the podcast journey. I think each one's getting slightly better. So this one's going to be the best one yet.
Best one yet until the next one.
I think what I've kind of been doing on like a high level is just starting off with guests and their background and their journey into crypto, because everybody's journey is a little bit unique.
Yeah.
So why don't you start there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it goes way back, I would say. I started, it's 1995, picture the year, and me and some buddies, we started a fantasy football league in our high school. So on Monday mornings, we get the newspaper out
Oh, wow.
and do the scores. But we did it with money, right? So we did it with a shared account. So we had a shared interest community with a bank account, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
essentially a DAO is like, what we were doing back then.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been running online communities ever since then. But like really with crypto, and I got in around 2014 with Bitcoin. And
That's
when
super early.
Yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, you're always, it doesn't matter how early you are. You always think like, oh, wow, I could have been in 2011.
Yeah.
And I started doing more research and became fascinated with it. And it opened up so many doors in my mind to how everything operates, not just Bitcoin, but all of our man-made ecosystems that we're doing here.
Yeah.
So that gave me the freedom to go, wow, all this stuff's really kind of made up. It gave me, freedom to make stuff up on my own. And what really happened, I guess, took off was I had a startup in 2019, 2020, and 2021 came around, and we were struggling with the financial pipes. So we were using all the traditional finance things.
Yeah.
And I went back to crypto and I said, wow, if I have an NFT, I can essentially recreate our entire back end. And we did it within a couple of days, built in Solana, actually.
Wow.
And it was like, wow, this is so much easier. This is an upgrade of the monetary system. What we've been talking about is, as long as I can remember Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And we're finally there. We're able to do it. But it was too early. It was a B2C.
Okay.
So cool. And that's why we kind of pivoted to EmpireDAO. But like that was really like the deep dive of working in crypto wasn't until 2021 in the summer. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's crazy. So were you involved at all anywhere like in the bull market of like 2017, or were you kind of like an onlooker during that period?
Bit of an onlooker. Like I definitely was buying into ICOs.
Yeah.
I bought a bunch of ETH and like not a bunch, I'm no whale by any means.
Yeah.
But when I discovered the NFTs last summer, I had house money to play with.
Okay.
Like, oh wow, I bought ETH at $20 or whatever it was.
That's a good entry price.
Yeah. It might have been more than that, but the point is, it was enough that like, oh wow, I had a nice chunk of them out there. But
Yeah.
I spent too much time as a Bitcoin maxi. I will admit it. Like I was like, this sounds cool, but it all should be on Bitcoin. So I didn't really pay attention to like DeFi summer.
Okay.
And, like I missed regrettably I missed a lot on ETH those years for sure.
Yeah. No, it's super interesting. I think I was doing another podcast, and he kind of had a similar journey where he was like Bitcoin maxi and kind of refused to look at other chains. And then he was like, oh, wait, they're actually doing like some pretty interesting things that are either impossible or very hard to do on Bitcoin. And he started building on Ethereum. So I think it's cool. I think the hard part in crypto is just always keeping like an open mind because it's changing so fast. That if you're like a maxi of any single chain, you'll probably miss things that you should be seeing.
Yeah, and I think it actually served me well. Being a Bitcoin maxi for as long as I was helped me realize when other people are.
Yeah.
So I now chat with a lot of people in Ethereum, and they have the same talking points that I had about Ethereum, about Solana. It's like, this is the exact same thing I said 4 years ago. And so I can hear it. I'm like, it's... You need to open your mind up to little things. So it served me well the last 6 months or so, looking at other chains as well, and just hearing the argument points, how invalid they are. And, and I've been fortunate enough to meet a lot of people from the foundation, a lot of founders in different chains, and to get to talk to them and what they love about it. And honestly, I fall in love with almost every chain, like hence Multichain Mike.
That's awesome. Now, I used to be an ETH maxi myself. Open mind is definitely paramount.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not different than just open mind towards anything else. Like if you ever met someone who's never left their hometown or their country, and they're like, oh, that place sucks. It's like, have you ever been? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you need, it's an ignorance. And that's another thing that goes back to my journey a little bit is is traveling. I was fortunate enough. My sister, when I was 20, sent me to Australia. She's like, go study abroad. You need to learn something. Showed up with like $300 in my pocket.
Okay.
Bartended down there and went to school.
Hell yeah.
But ever since then, I lived in 5 countries on 4 continents, and that's helped the same concept, right?
Okay.
This reduction of ignorance
on
the chains is actually similar to geographical regions.
100%. And I mean, I think I used to work in the travel industry.
Oh, cool.
And one of the biggest things about travel is just how much it actually does open up your mind and showcase different viewpoints. And I think that's one of the unique things about crypto as well, just being global from essentially day one. How many people travel and go to different events. You've gone to multiple different events. How would you kind of say like traveling to different events like around the world has kind of, I guess is like different for like each communities? Like how are the communities in those different locations?
Yeah, I mean, let's see, it's South by Southwest in 2009 was like my first big tech conference that I went to.
Nice.
And I haven't stopped since. I did not realize how home that is to me. I actually love being in the crowd, listening to a panel, also working at the same time, meeting people at night. I live for these kind of meetups. Yeah. And, what I really like about what Solana's doing right now, we're in the New York City Hacker House, right? Like this kind of, I'm an IRL maxi. Like, like if there's any kind of maxi, it's IRL. It's getting these communities together to get a vibe going, to get things moving. So, I mean, what was early on, going back to 2009, 10, 11, I was the social media guy, and like all the conferences were the same folks. Yeah. We're in a very special time right now. I keep seeing the same people in Chicago and Miami and Lisbon, and like we're all kind of doing this circuit. But unfortunately, we're all going to break off in the next couple of years. Yeah, for sure. Because what'll happen is I'll get asked to speak at an insurance conference because they wanted to know how they should enable Web3 or NFTs for their clients. Or yeah. And that's what happened with social media. We all became like, we were all there for a couple of years, and then it just became everything. Yeah. It became part of every single company, everyone's lives. And this to me, I think it's kind of the same thing, but it's even more in depth. I think this is actually going to have way bigger impact than social media did, for better or worse, on all of our lives and every organization. For sure. And maybe to pull on that thread a little bit more, how like just being early to like new things with like social media and now like Web3 and crypto, how have you been able to like identify these things that are happening relatively fast, but also be early to them? Tinker. Yeah, I mean, I'm in way too many. I have way too many apps on my phone. I'm in way too many Discords. I'm in way too many DAOs. Yeah. But like you find something that's interesting there, and you learn. You just got to keep tinkering and playing and showing up. Mm-hmm. And I think, and then going back to the conference part of it, having 2 years of being inside, really, I didn't realize how much it killed me. But it slowed down society in general in terms of like having these interactions and these things. So showing up is kind of half of the battle in anything. Yeah, no, I totally agree. I haven't been to too many of the conferences outside of like Breakpoint. I went to Bitcoin last year, but I've realized just being here how much energy I actually do get from it, especially when you're on the computer the vast majority of the day, just being with people that are like-minded and kind of all speak the same language. It's empowering. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's how we started EmpireDAO, right? It was like people want to get back. They're still kind of like, where are we at with COVID and what's the situation? Yeah. And, I'm realizing quickly that this energy is so hard to duplicate. Yeah. And once I went to Breakpoint, when was that? In November last year? Yeah. That was kind of like, we're back, man. We're back. NFT NYC was one of those. Yeah. So I was like, let's capitalize on these interactions. I had my heart was full when these things were back, and I'm like, yes, this is it. And like, all right, let's do this full time. And that's why we're opening up EmpireDAO, actually. Hell yeah. So maybe for those that aren't super familiar with EmpireDAO, could you give like a brief overview of what it is, like what your role is there, and then what you're trying to do with it? Yeah, sure. So it's a high-level protocol that pretty much anyone in the world can spin up a DAO with their own token, so they can control their own local economy. In our case, you can book desks and whatnot. So EmpireDAO in New York City is our first node of many nodes, if you will. Nice. So, and I'll talk so that's kind of the high level one. EmpireDAO itself in New York City is a 5-story building in the Bowery, and it's going to serve as a gallery, NFT gallery, lobby, a space that event center that you can come in, launch your events, or just hang out and vibe with everyone who's in the space.
Nice.
But then there's also 3 floors of both co-working and permanent desks. Okay. So we've got all Web3. We have a few level 1, level 2 chains that are going to have their 24/7, 365 hacker houses going in there, so their ecosystem can grow and have a place to go.
That'd be super awesome.
But then we're also going to have hot desks. So you might own a desk with an NFT, and then if you're traveling for a week, you can put it on the market and get market prices for it and put a smart contract behind for 2 weeks or whatever you're gone, or even a day. You only want to work once or twice a week. Yeah. Because what we're finding is, I was fortunate enough I worked for 2 major corporations, but both, while I did, I was kind of hybrid. So this hybrid model that we're getting back to, I've been doing it for a decade, and it's what people want. Yeah. So they don't want to commit 5 days, 7 days. You're committing 7 days, really, a week to this. When you commit to a real estate office, you don't have any flexibility. There's people on the weekends that want to work in your space. Yeah. Why not build that flexibility? So that's something that we're tinkering with. And then we have a floor of DAOs that we're going to experiment with. Some might be pop-ups, some might be permanent. We might do a flex DAO type thing where it's a gym and you can book your trainer and the sessions in there. And then maybe we'll create some gym technology out of there that anyone else on the planet could use for their local gym.
That's awesome.
So it's going to be a laboratory, if you will, but also an event space. And kind of, and going back to my being a degenerate and owning too many NFTs, too many DAOs, I get a lot of meetups. And, in New York, it's kind of tough sometimes to find places. In the summer, it's great. In the winter, it's somewhere like it's not alcohol based. Yeah. And a lot of the members are like, oh, great, we're meeting at a pub. I don't really drink, but like I'm used to it. Yeah. But like this is a place that we want NFT projects to come and meet, and also not only see their art on the walls or their projects, but see others and get closer to the other people in the community.
That's awesome. No, it's super amazing. I really appreciate the community aspect that you're trying to replicate in the hacker houses, and not only just individual teams, but multiple teams. And having that energy from every team kind of together can breed something special.
That's right, too. And the other thing is, being a DAO ourselves, we're going to invest in pretty much every project that's working out of there. Okay. So just by holding our token and working in there, you kind of own a little piece of everyone else's company in there as well. So at other co-working locations that we might know, it's good, but you might not work in the same industry. We want people to work in this all in Web3. And you also have that co-ownership. So it feels like a village. Like if they do better, I do better. So in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I have a little piece of that. So if they ask for a designer or an introduction, you're a little more likely to get back to them in a sooner fashion than you would some company that you don't own a piece of. So we want to instill that kind of camaraderie. And it's brilliant. I mean, like we're all going to make it like hyper capitalist, like we're all going to make money, but we're all going to make it super inclusive too. So it's like communist in a sense.
I like that.
So like this kind of convergence of those two styles is brilliant. And I don't think we've had any kind of tools in the world that could really enable this kind of thing before.
No, I'm definitely looking forward to the one in New York opening. Are there any? I know that one's like just being finalized now, but are there any plans in the work for future houses that are already in the works, or are those still like TBD at the moment?
A little TBD, but I mean, there's MountainDAO was a great example of what we're doing. Mm-hmm. That was a month long. We're trying to make it permanent. Okay. So we're working closely with them.
MountainDAO specifically on your protocol?
No. Okay. They've spun it up themselves, but this is the concept of like we would like to utilize your protocol and let's do this full time. It's
super cool. I saw lots of pictures from the MountainDAO and I was jealous.
Yeah, it's cool. And so these hacker houses are like weekends or week long. They did a month long. Mm-hmm. We're gonna do multi-year of that, and then it's gonna go back there, and they'll be full time as well. And then we're Denver and Montreal. That we have some folks in there that also want to spin up something very similar. So like they're right on. And then obviously Lisbon and Miami and these other places, LA, really they have been coming to us too and saying, hey, we want to build something like that here too. So it'll expand suddenly and then all at once.
No, that's epic. I'm definitely looking forward to EmpireDAO starting up in New York and also expanding worldwide.
Yeah. It should be a great global community, and and hypothetically, you'll be able to swap out. So you'll be able to use any crypto there. But like, say you're a New York pass, you'll be able to swap that easy for LA pass when you're visiting there. And we're still working the mechanisms of that, but the idea is that you should be able to go anywhere on the planet.
Okay, nice. No, that'll be awesome. So you mentioned at the beginning that you're in quite a few DAOs. Another one that has kind of become popular relatively recently that you're involved with is LinksNow.
Yeah.
Could you touch a little bit more on LinksNow and what LinksNow is doing?
Sure. Yeah. And I mean, I'm not associated directly with the project or anything. I'm just a member who's got the NFT, but I'm a big fan of it. I've been golfing in New York let me back up a little bit. The social communities that we have, like typically for centuries, it was based around religion on weekends. And we kind of got away from that in the last couple of generations. And it's kind of easy to make your crews in high school and university and then your first job. And then when you have kids, you have the other parents and whatnot, but it kind of gets a little harder from there.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to play Australian rules football for the Denver Bulldogs for 8 years. So we traveled 3 times a year and that was my crew, right?
Oh, yeah.
We lived together. It was a good social community. And I played for the New York Magpies for a decade.
Okay.
I'm 42 now, so like I got hurt last year. I embarrassed myself. Like it's time to hang up the boots in that arena. So what's happened is NFT projects, 2 of them particularly, have really kind of connected me to my interest. And then one is LinksNow. I've been golfing by myself in New York for a decade, which I don't mind. I like playing by myself, but I don't have a crew.
Yeah.
And overnight, by buying an NFT and being part of the LinksNow, and LinksNow, just a quick backup, is we're buying a golf course. So I think they raised, I don't know how many million in 48 hours selling NFTs. And I think they're raising funds now. So we're actually going to all own a golf course together. They've got merch coming out.
That's insane.
We just had our first outing in Austin over South by Southwest. So we had a tournament and it was great. I think 150 people showed up.
That's awesome.
And what's cool about it is when you see them, it's like another sports fan that's like has your hat or something like that. You have something together. If someone's like, oh, I'm going to get 150 people together to go golf for a week. I'm like, no, I'm not just going to like show up with some random folks. That's exactly what I did. But since we all, had a vested interest in this project succeeding, like we all genuinely own it. I feel ownership of it. I'm not part of the core team or anything, but I feel ownership of it. And then there's a subreddit or a channel within Discord of New York City members.
Okay.
They meet up on Wednesday nights and play in the indoor golf simulator. And then in the summer, we're going to be getting together doing something. So this NFT to me, this DAO, I'm not selling anytime soon. This is my social community. And the MonkeyDAO is kind of the other one in there. But that's kind of what LinksDAO is up to. And it's been a really cool project. And I genuinely think in a decade, we'll probably have more golf courses than any other company on the organization on the planet.
I forgot that they are building that golf course. That's insane.
They're probably going to buy a golf course.
I'll buy one. I mean,
yeah.
Both are ridiculous. But
it won't be surprised if we actually do design and in the next decade or so, like actually have our own course that we come out with. Yeah.
That's awesome. Huh. No, I mean, you nailed it on like the social communities and DAO aspect. It's been super interesting to watch kind of unfold over time because I personally was super hyped about DeFi and all the stuff that was going on in DeFi summer with composability. And I was trying to show all my friends, I was like, hey, look, like do a swap on Uniswap, like take a loan out of comp. But they're like, Logan, like, no. And but then NFTs came around and I was like, hey, this mint is dropping. Come in, like, let's do this mint. And they started getting involved in these communities as they started minting these projects. And they loved NFTs. And so I've just personally been surprised by how strong the NFT and DAOs communities have become in such a short period of time.
It's crazy, yeah. And I think I'll go back to LinksDAO moment because when I was in the Discord there, more than half had no profile picture in there. And what did that mean? That mean that this was their first NFT.
Oh, cool.
They came in. It was their first time on Discord. Their first time connecting a wallet. Their first time actually using crypto. Some probably like, oh, I have some Bitcoin. But this was their first time, and they made the jump because of their passion around golf and around the community. Yeah. And that's where it's like, this is a great example for people that they're going to love this. But they have to have that real world example. Yeah. And if you're like, we're just all, doing DeFi stuff all night, like, it's going to be hard to build around that. Now I think it's going to be easier. And LinksDAO opened up the avenue for something like EmpireDAO. It made something like, something tangible that we can do. We now can do that in the real world as well. And so that's why I'm always pumped about that project as a golfer, but then also as an entrepreneur building an IRL.
No, it's amazing what a group of individuals that want to achieve something can achieve. And I think the NFTs and DAOs are an embodiment of that. So it's very cool.
Yeah. And I guess some of it's not so new, right? If you think about like a neighborhood or a HOA of like a shared condo unit, right?
Yeah.
So I am the president of my 29 unit condo unit in Brooklyn. And it's the same thing. Like we all own something. We all have a deed, essentially the NFT, right?
Yeah.
We have vested interest in when we do sell it going up. So we do like, we shield a bit our neighborhood and our building, and like we vote on things to get upgraded. But it's such an efficient way of how we organize it. And if it was all on chain, it would be thousands times better to do the voting, to move the funds, all of it, and like not have money just sitting in a treasury doing nothing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of aspects of like this kind of shared ownership isn't that new. Going back like to the fantasy football model, like it's the same kind of thing, but it's so much simpler, so much more efficient if you can put it on chain and have that kind of that functionality behind it.
I totally agree. One of the other things you touched upon was the MonkeyDAO, and we're both a part of the MonkeyDAO. Super awesome community, and everybody that I've met in the MonkeyDAO are ballers. They're not just a sense of ballers, but they go out, they build, they're welcoming. They're super awesome community.
Yeah.
You have an involvement in there. Can you touch upon your involvement and also kind of how you came into the MonkeyDAO?
Yeah, sure. Just full disclosure, I'm part of the multi-sign committee. I think there's 16 of us on that.
Good disclosure.
Yeah. Of that committee. So we lead different parts of it, different pods of, whether it's marketing or whatnot. So we run the project together along with the community. And we have different levels of where we put votes out to the members, of the board members or of the overall committee. But the MonkeyDAO for me was I think it was my first Solana NFT, and the DAO was coming out. That's purely why I bought it, because there was the first DAO on Solana was coming out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to be involved in this. I want to get to see it early. I want to experience it from the beginning. And I did. I got to witness it and watch it in the first 3 months or so. Go, wow, they created this. And this wasn't the team who started the project. This was just from the members going, we're into this project. Let's build it. And what it turned out to be is entrepreneurs and investors in the Solana ecosystem, which I was both. And so I was like, wow, this is my squad. This is my community. I want to be there. So like I enjoyed all the conversations that were happening on Discord. And I saw how the first board went. I chimed in on their voting structure. Like they were like, oh, if you have 80 monkeys, do you get 80 votes? Or is it one per wallet? And they capped it at 3, right? So like if you do have a lot, you get more votes, but not enough where people are going to you and trying to sway your vote. We don't want it to turn into that, right?
Yeah.
So I got to witness this in real time out loud, sit in kind of their public board meetings, and it was a great experience. And then in December, I decided to put myself up and nominate myself, having this experience of being the board president and starting these leagues. And I was like, oh, wow, this is a good fit. And I ran on kind of this multi-chain future. Mm-hmm. I think Solana is by default the first popular chain that is not maximalist by default. Like most people, there is some soul maxism in there. Don't get me wrong, but it's not as if a lot of people came from Ethereum and they understand like, oh, this has a purpose, that has a purpose. There's other ones that are going to be out there, and I think the Solana monkey business and the MonkeyDAO specifically has a responsibility to represent that across all of Web3.
Yeah.
And so we started the multi-chain series. It's every other week. We interview entrepreneurs and builders and people from their foundations from different chains to reduce the ignorance. What's happening in your chain?
And the MonkeyDAO is doing that?
Yeah, we do it every other week, every other Thursday at noon.
I did not know that.
That's
badass.
We have 2 episodes up. We did Algorand and we did Stacks recently. I think we're going to do Terra and Near in the next couple episodes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's good. We ask questions about them and, what projects are popular. And again, full disclosure, I usually have like an NFT or two on all these chains because I'm a degenerate. But yeah, and then we also started the Open Habitat, which is a Discord just for projects on these different chains that are successful. So we don't just let anyone in, but we let projects in there. We have an AMA for each chain because sometimes like, oh, well, how do you guys swap whatever to whatever? And like people answer it. And then like we're collaborating now on these different projects. And of course, the first project we're collaborating on is a multi-chain poker tournament to see who comes out. So like you might have to win your own chain and then come out and be at the final table of 6 or something like that.
Nice. That would be a good game.
Yeah. But the overall thing is to kind of serve, the MonkeyDAO started it, but we don't want to own it ultimately. We want it to be owned by the different NFT projects and DAOs on different chains, and to kind of be like almost like a UN, right? Like we help start it, but it's not owned by us or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the MonkeyDAO in a nutshell, my involvement, and where I see the future of it is being a leader, not just on Solana, but in Web3 in general.
I love that. I haven't been as close to the MonkeyDAO ecosystem and following along with it. So
get amongst it, man. Yeah, get in there.
That's super cool that the monkeys are doing that, not only on Solana, but bridging out to other chains and trying to be leaders among the industry.
And the cool thing is, on the board meetings, I'm the dumbest guy in the room every time. There are some big brains in that. Yeah. And I'm dead serious, man. Like these guys are really smart what they're doing. The programs, the different revenue models they're looking at. And it's a fully functioning startup. Yeah. And it's got a lot of potential. And I think we'll look back in a decade or two when people are like, these are some of the biggest, most important entities and organizations on the planet are these DAOs right now that we're seeing in their infancy. And I think the MonkeyDAO will be one of those.
I could not agree more. That's awesome. Yeah, maybe we could touch upon a little bit more, or we kind of did, but maybe go a little bit deeper into kind of your thoughts on like the ecosystem as a whole, being a multi-chain enjoyer.
Yeah.
Kind of speak about the multi-chain future that you're kind of envisioning, and then also perhaps talk about why you're building EmpireDAO on Solana.
Yeah, sure. So let's start the multi-chain. I think this back-end future, I know blockchains are more than just a database, but at the same time, the end user really doesn't care.
It's true.
How they move something, right? And we're moving packets of data across the internet in a much more efficient way, in a better way. The end user doesn't care. And what I'm finding is with these different chains, some of them have really good specific uses and certain clients that are fitting that.
Okay.
So, I don't know, I'll throw out Algorand, for example. My friends, I worked at BNY Mellon and Wall Street, and a lot of my counterparts were the head of digital innovation. So they're working and they're really attracted to it because it came out of Boston. These Nobel laureates made it. And so they have a real focus on security of traditional finance. I have no idea if that might be the most logical sense for what they're building specifically. What we're seeing in Solana is fast, cheap transactions. Great for gaming, things you could never do with gas fees, right?
Yeah.
And the others might have the infrastructure of it. So I see hundreds of thousands of blockchains in the future with specific uses coming up continuously with their own feature set. If you think about it, let's compare it to video or just content in general. How many places do you read content on? How many places do you see video? Every single social media platform has some kind of video or another.
True.
And again, is any of them going to be best? Like there's a lot of functionality that they all share, but they have different audiences and different communities around them.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm bullish on the multi-chain future. I don't see one for them all by any means, and I think it's just going to continue to grow, and different communities will find their niche that they collaborate around. So, yeah, I think it's early days, but it's also, I think all these chains are going to still be around. People are like, oh, there's going to be 3 or 4. I think there's going to be 3 or 4,000.
That may be a contrarian take. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out. I've been super surprised. I mean, going back to how early it is, if you just look at like Dune Analytics and their dashboards, for OpenSea, for example, has like 1 million users on like the ETH L1. But on like Polygon, they have like another 1 million users. But in the grand scheme of things, from like an NFT standpoint, that is a drop in the bucket compared to
Nothing.
Facebook or Google and the amount of customers that they have on their applications. And then if you start bridging down to like DeFi, there's a couple 100,000. I think Uniswap's the most popular dApp with like 4 million ever doing a swap.
Still nothing,
but
right?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And so I'm very much excited for, I don't know, just more people in general coming into the ecosystem and, I don't know, enjoying the chains.
They will. Like we like to draw lines in the sand. I was around the days when people said I'll never get a mobile phone. Like no one needs to know where I'm at all times, right?
That's funny.
Then to social media, no one cares what I had for lunch. I'll never get a social media account, right? And now I'll never get an NFT or a DAO. I don't need that.
I like those analogies.
And it's like you might not even realize it in 2 or 3 years that it's on the blockchain or it's crypto based. You might not even know it. It's just part of your life.
Yeah.
And that's where we're building towards. Yeah.
No, I totally agree. Very cool.
And to answer your question about Solana, I mean, like for us, we need to be making daily NFTs, right? So we need to be pushing out that we need fast, cheap movement of our NFTs and our creation of tokens. And right now, having the experience of built on Solana. And also, I mean, frankly, Solana's been betting on IRL, and so are we. And they have more so than any other chain. So I've been bouncing around on these other conferences. I've gone into their hackathons and their houses, and others are doing it, but no one's doing it on this extent.
I feel like,
across globally.
I mean, that's the alpha that like people don't see, or at least that I have not witnessed so far. I come to these hacker houses and I follow the Twitter accounts, and so I'm seeing all this activity, and I'm blown away. There's so many engineers, so many developers, so many people trying to fund projects in the space. Not that doesn't happen on any chains, but the frequency and the order of magnitude that the events are put on and to the high standard that they are done, it's just super impressive.
They're doing something very special here, and I think it'll be replicated. I hope it will.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope everyone does this and has these interactions and builds together. I mean, even today I was collaborating with someone that we're going to be working on between MonkeyDAO and EmpireDAO, and how we're going to be like that, just from a collision that we just happen to walk past each other in the right place, right?
Uh-huh.
So like these kind of things are going to turn into company. And honestly, let me back up to a little bit to EmpireDAO. It was based on a hacker house day that was in Soho in New York. And that's where I met Luke and Mary from Bridge Split, who said, hey, we're looking for space. Hey, should we do this more often? And that's kind of how EmpireDAO started, was at one of these places.
Huh.
And let me back up again. That I was at that place because I ran into OX Banana at a mainnet event. He saw me wearing my monkey shirt, came running across the room and said, another monkey, you're the first one I met in person. This is last summer. And they said, oh, you got to get my Telegram group. It's a Solana NYC group. And then is what put me into that day. And then that's how EmpireDAO started, by owning a monkey. And like, yeah.
IRL Maxi.
IRL Maxi. That's it, man.
I think, I mean, and you touched upon it, the last couple of years with COVID and everything that's just been going on in the world, being able to see people, being able to enjoy each other's presence and just have that energy of that community. It is something special.
Yeah, that's it. So this is, I mean, even this interaction, right?
Yeah.
Doing this episode, it wouldn't have happened if we didn't bump into each other yesterday.
That's true.
So.
That's true. No, I'm becoming an IRL Maxi.
Yeah, you can join my IRL. No, I don't know what that would be, but yeah.
Cool. I think a lot of people are maybe trying to learn about the space, trying to learn about NFTs, trying to learn about DAOs. You said tinkering.
Yeah.
Is there any like tinkering advice, or how do you go about like trying to learn or teach yourself?
Yeah, I will say there's a lot that you have to be careful with, right? Like there's a lot of rug pulls, as they call it, a lot of scams, a lot of different ways to get taken.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I do tinker on any chain and anything, I always do like $5 transactions at first for everything.
Okay.
Like I still to this day, it's a habit I have of like, let me just send something small first, because I'm absent-minded. I get distracted and suddenly like my wallet's drained or something, right? Yeah. So I don't want that to happen. So anytime I make a transaction, I'm in the habit of like doing a small one first just to make sure I do it.
Okay.
So I definitely recommend that for anybody. But what I really would recommend is just getting into the community at this point in 2022. Discord is where all the communities kind of live, and you can find their information, hang out there for a week or two. if you're in, let's say, into wine, there's the Vine DAO, and it's like, all right, I'm into that. Let me jump in their community, spend a week or two, listen to their weekly meetings, and go, oh wow, these people are legit. Do your own research. I don't know if they are. And then you could find out pretty quickly if like these are the people that you would vibe with. Would you want to hang out with them IRL?
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, what's the idea of buying it? I have to get a wallet. I have to do that. YouTube is your friend. Use that in how to download, how to make transactions. Every single type of transaction someone's recorded a video for, so you can find those. But yeah, be really careful. But at the same time, you also have to be a bit adventurous, and that's why I like to do it in really small increments, so that you can test, but it doesn't cost you much to learn. But know that you are learning. This is a whole new internet. Like Web3 is not an exaggeration. This is an upgrade from the internet that we know, and it's a learning curve for everybody. Even people who are like really into it still find themselves getting taken, so you have to be careful.
1000%. I think I kind of describe it as like mountain climbing, in a sense that most people are already in some endeavor and on top of their mountain or pretty far up their mountain. But with Web3, it's hard because it's a new mountain. You have to go back down and you have to restart and climb a new mountain to learn. And I think that's why we're seeing a lot of young people interested in the space, because they're just starting their ascent. But no, I would totally agree.
And let's just jump on those mountains real quick. The mountain that it came from, my niece, she's 16, and she was like, she thinks of TikTok and Instagram like my generation thought of smoking. Like, oh, it's
really
a bad habit.
Really?
You're all day, you're addicted to it.
Huh.
She's not wrong.
No.
Like,
she's wise.
And so when I showed her, I set her up with a Phantom wallet and then kind of showed her like, hey, you can log in these different things. She's like, wait a minute, they didn't take my name, my address, anything, and I can go to these? And I'm like, yeah, the sites aren't as good yet. They're getting built out every day. But yeah, this whole internet, you don't get tracked for anything. And, she's well aware of how Google monetizes and how they track you for everything, and Instagram, and Netflix knows all your habits. And she was like, wow, I'm in on this, and the good thing is, you also get paid to use it too, right? Like,
Yeah.
You might get an airdrop of a couple tens of thousands of dollars if you're lucky. But no, by using the products, they often reward you, and they don't take your data specifically. So it's a win-win. It's a new mountain. I'm sure there's negative ramifications. I'm sure the naivety that like we didn't realize with social media. I remember, we're going to change the world. It's all going to be better. We didn't realize the negative ramifications of misinformation and the addiction. We had no idea that was going to come. And I imagine there's going to be some negative ramifications that come out of Web3 as well that are unforeseen. But that's technology. We move forward. It's a double-edged sword.
No, I totally agree. Cool. We've been chatting almost for about 40 minutes. Are there like any specific topics that like you're kind of excited by in the next like coming months or coming years?
Yeah, I mean, so like the idea behind EmpireDAO is way beyond just like a workspace, right? So let's think about a town square or a library or a makerspace or a skate park, right? Mm-hmm. Things that we need in our community for our community to develop. In the systems now, you hope that the government funding kind of works out right and there's not a competitive issue.
Yeah.
And it works in some towns, right? Sometimes it ends up being a corporation throwing a logo on there. So going back to that WAGB communist capitalist concept, I foresee in the next few years us finding different parts, particularly in New York City. If you're in a 3-block radius of a park or something, having a token around it, we're incentivized to make it better financially and for our own living. And it's a much better way of managing our local communities.
I love that.
I'm not saying we're going to, take out the whole industrial nation state model overnight by any means. But there's higher levels that work for highways and different things federally and nationally and internationally. But we really need to focus internationally, because the nation state model is outdated, right? So like the biggest threats to society are global.
Yeah.
Whether it's AI or nuclear war, diseases like COVID type of things, these aren't nation state solvable problems, global warming, etc. But then, so we need to think globally, but then also act locally. Not to sound too cliche here, but I think we have an opportunity to move a lot of our IRL stuff on chain that's not government and it's not corporate and it's owned by us. And I think that's a beautiful future. I think this is what our vision of EmpireDAO is creating that for other towns and places to be able to do the IRL stuff in a much more efficient way and make it a better world from there.
I think that's beautiful. Beautifully put. Awesome. Like any last minute things?
That's it, man. And if you're curious about this industry, you have to jump in. You have to show up. You have to try it out. You're not going to learn it by reading about it. That'll help, but you have to experience it. And that's it. So I encourage everyone to tinker around as much as possible with the space. And
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mike. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to coming to EmpireDAO.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.